So in this video we're going to look at our introduction to finding probabilities of events that involve the word and, such as the probability of one event happening and then another. So we're going to look at in this video calculating probabilities using what is known as the multiplication rule. So let's just go ahead and start with an example. It'll best help us to ease into the multiplication rule. So example 1 says you flip a coin and then roll a single die. What is the probability that you flip heads and roll a 5? So notice that these two events, flipping heads and also rolling a 5, separated by the word and. Well, let's take a look at what our sample space would be. So with flipping a coin, we have two outcomes, heads or tails. And with rolling a single die, we have 6 outcomes, the values 1 through 6. So we could flip a coin, comes up heads and roll a 1, so we get heads in a 1, heads in a 2, and then all the way down to tails in a 5 and tails in a 6. So our sample space consists of 2 outcomes for the coin and 6 outcomes for the die, which means there's 12 total possible outcomes for flipping a coin and rolling a single die. So the probability that we get heads and 5, well, that's this event right here, the H5. So rolling a 5 and flipping heads is this one occurrence out of a total of 12. And in the previous example, the probability of flipping heads was 1/2. The probability of rolling a 5 was 1/6. And we said that the probability of flipping heads and then rolling a 5 was 1/12. Well, we can get 1/12 by taking the 1/2 probability and multiplying it by the 1/6 probability. So our multiplication rule says if P of A is the probability of event A occurring, like flipping heads, and P of B is the probability of event B occurring, like rolling a 5 on a single die, then the probability of the two events happening together, the probability of A and B, the probability of flipping heads and rolling a 5, is going to be the probability of our first event, so in this case 1/2, times the probability of our second event, or 1/6. And 1/2 times 1/6 will give us the 1/12 probability that we saw when we listed out the sample space in that table. So here we have a tree diagram to help explain the outcomes and having a total of 12. So we have 6 outcomes with rolling a die after we flip heads, and we have 6 outcomes after for rolling a die after flipping tails. So there's 6 here and then another 6 here, make a total of 12 possible outcomes. So there's 12 possible paths we can go down for these outcomes, for flipping heads and then each of the dice outcomes, and then flipping tails and each of those outcomes for rolling as well. So the and, if we look at a Venn diagram for the two events, so here's event A, this circle, here's event B, this circle, here's our total sample space here. The probability of event A and B happening together is the intersection or the overlap of these two circles. So if we have event A is flipping a coin and event B is rolling a single die, then the coin, inside this circle we have heads and tails, and inside the circle for rolling for the die we have the numbers 1 through 6. So the intersection of the two events, heads on the coin and 5 on the die, would be in the overlap of these two circles. Finally, we're going to conclude by talking about what are known as mutually exclusive events. And mutually exclusive events are two events that cannot happen together. So in other words, the probability of event A and B occurring, if they're mutually exclusive, is 0. There is no chance that the two can happen together. So, all right, that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.